Welcome back to the podcast Under Your Bed, everybody. Today we are reviewing Smile 2022, and I'm your host, CJ. Over there is your hostess, Taylor.
Hi, guys.
And if you haven't come across this show in trailers or anything, basically it's about a doctor who inherits a curse after witnessing a young woman kill herself. There's a lot of smiling. It's not a very happy movie, I don't think.
Yeah, kind of upsetting smiling, if we're being honest. But before we
why so serious?
There's a lot of reasons which we'll get into because it's a pretty grim movie. But in case you are new to the show, what we do every episode is we will go through a spoiler-free section. We'll give you a little cast and crew rundown, some of our thoughts. Do we think it's scary? Do we think it's worth watching? After that, you get a featured cocktail paired with the movie, and we'll run through the entire plot. So if you haven't seen it, yeah, right. You just love doing it. You'll be all up to speed, and then we do a deep dive. So if you want to skip the spoiler-free section, go ahead. If you want to skip the plot summary, go ahead. We won't know, and we won't be offended.
So this movie, to kick it right off,
let's get into that cast and crew, eh?
Pretty sweet, yeah. And directed by Parker Finn, who directed the short that this movie's based off of. I don't know him outside of that.
Laura Hasn't Slept, I think is what it's called. I think that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so the kind of little cool, just before we get into it, all the kind of cool of that is that, they made this short. It's one of those rare instances where then it actually gets picked up to be a full feature and features similar cast, which is awesome.
Hallelujah! The myths are true. If I had a dollar for every time I heard that in the industry. No, it's going to get picked up as a feature, I swear.
Yeah, sure. But I love, too, that they brought in the same actress, which I think is really rad. And then on top of that, this had so much success where Paramount was like, we're just going to have this be a streaming thing, but preview tests went so well that they ended up putting it out in the theaters, and it's done really well for itself, which again, this is just like a Cinderella story, despite the deep darkness of the movie that has that going for it.
Yeah, it's great. And, it's got a strong cast going along with Parker.
Yes.
Cinematographer Charlie Saroff. The composing was great. Ooh. Cristobal Tapia. Dave Veer.
And he did the White Lotus soundtrack, so if you're into that, yes.
Yeah, I mean, this was just a very well-made movie.
Absolutely.
Editor Elliot Greenberg. And then pretty stacked cast, if you want to take that.
Yeah, so our protagonist is Rose, played by, I'm hoping I got this right, but I want to say it's Sosie Bacon. If you did watch the Scream TV series, she plays Aubrey's girlfriend for 2 episodes before, of course, getting offed by, our Ghostface killer. That spoiler, I guess. Whoops, sorry. But anyways, that TV series has been out and done for a while, so I'm not that fussed about it. But aside from her, reprising her role as Laura is Caitlin Stassi, who you might have seen from All Cheerleaders Die, which is actually kind of a fun movie. It's a little bizarre, but it's fun. Kyle Gallner, a Scream alum, joining us for this one.
Yo.
I have to special shout out to Jesse T. Usher, who is A-Train in The Boys. I mean, that's got to be the biggest role. Love him. And another big TV show alum, you get Rob Morgan, who plays one of the 2 cops in Stranger Things, so definitely recognizable. And again, we got another big heavy hitter with Kal Penn, who obviously you're going to know from Harold and Kumar, but also has some American Horror Story cred, so he's repping a little horror in there. You got to respect.
For sure. I mean, it was a super strong cast. Not that I knew everyone, but everyone crushed it on screen. So, I mean, to dive into the movie, I felt like it had a lot of vibes of sort of like It and It Follows.
I
was like some sort of combination of the two at times. Really the movie sort of gave me the same tones and vibes of It Follows the most. And then it had like it was kind of followed like the same plot structure, if you will, as like The Ring, so
yeah, it's got that curse that's passed on that the person has to try to which is also similar to It Follows, but has to kind of figure out how it's passed along, how they can avoid the same fate as their predecessors. And it definitely has that Ring type quality to it for sure, where there's the whole investigation angle.
Yeah. And then, it just great suspense throughout the movie. You don't know like where the scares are coming from and like who or what is a threat at times. So it really keeps you on the edge of your seat pretty early on in the movie and keeps you on your toes the whole time. I loved this movie.
I really like, it can almost be kind of frustrating when there's that reality thing of not knowing what's going on, what's real, what's not real, who you can trust, who you can't trust thing can sometimes be like for a viewer a little bit frustrating to watch. But I feel like the way they played out that narrative, it just added to the suspense and not the frustration so much. So it kind of like rang a little bit Oculus to me of those tones of, is this happening? Is this not happening? Kind of a thing. And it gets you a little stressed out because you just don't know.
Yes. Yeah. There's that like sort of very strong mental health themes throughout the movie.
Yes,
our main character works in a mental health institution, and so it really does a very good job about toying with those themes, even though you're not necessarily at times like uncertain of what reality is or what's supernatural. There's still a lot of very consistent themes about how society treats people who are having a mental health crisis.
Yes.
So it's very interesting to see how you have to survive in this kind of isolation, right?
I can't wait to deep dive into that because obviously I have so many opinions. I'm
very
really
curious your
excited.
thoughts. Yeah, because of course Taylor, if you don't know, works in that area. So
yeah, specifically with that population as well, with the really severe mental illness in adults. So lots of schizophrenia, bipolar disorders. So I'm always wary when we get into any kind of mental health thing. I'm always hypercritical. And I will say overall, I think they did a really good job. And I think they did a good job of not stigmatizing anybody, which I really appreciate. And I also just thought it was very interesting to have like a clinician experiencing the things that like a client would experience. And I thought that was just a very cool twist. And obviously we can't get into everything here right now. We'll get into it later. But I just wanted to shout that out, that I was actually like pretty impressed with the way they handled most of it. It was really well done.
Yeah, super fun. So I think maybe getting right to the ratings here.
Because we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Overall, or let's do Monsters Under the Bed first.
Yeah.
How scary was it for you? Out of 4 monsters under the bed, where is it?
Oh, this one's a bit of a struggle, honestly, because thematically I find it very intriguing. The concept of inherited trauma and it being a detriment to your life is like a very deep psychological thing. And so it's really interesting. There's good suspense as well. There's a few jump scares, one in particular that I genuinely started laughing after I had such a blast that they got me so hard on it. It's just like not expecting it. So much fun. But that said, like for me, it's probably still going to be a 2. I think I could bump it to a 2.5 to be a little kinder because, again, I think they did something a little different than your typical slasher. They went a little deeper. However, I don't think Maybe it's because the monster itself, and I don't like seeing the monster, so I think it's a good thing that doesn't really happen until the end. But I just don't know if that presence was enough for me to sell me on a 3. So I'm gonna go like a 2.5. How about for you, Monsters Under the Bed?
I'm glad you brought that out about sort of the monster reveal that does happen. You're right. It's the classic Jaws dilemma. Like, not seeing the monster is typically a better choice. I feel like this is a movie that sort of in a lot of ways got away with it. I thought it was
typically
well executed as it could be. Was it the right choice? I still don't know.
I don't know.
That being said, I think, per usual, I'm a notch above you on this one. 3 Monsters Under the Bed is what I'm rating it. The only thing holding me back from kind of pushing to that like 4 level would be probably that monster reveal at the end.
Yeah.
Because
we'll have to.
This is a movie that I thought was extremely suspenseful. It had some very like intense moments of just kind of horror. Like if you were to see this in person,
and dread, a lot of dread,
lots of dread.
Yeah.
And then it also has some very effective jump scares, and it is a movie that has enough like supernatural paranoia that plays with your head that it did linger with me quite a bit. Like this is a movie that
I'm love hearing that.
Like sitting at home alone in the dark, I'm kind of like, oh, that's in the back of my head. I'd rather that not be there. So solid 3 for me. Total overall rating of the movie out of 4 stars.
It was funny because I swear when the first trailer came out, I thought it was so gimmicky. It seemed so stupid.
Yeah.
I immediately kind of wrote it off, to be honest, which is like just a good lesson of just because the trailer looks one way or just because you have an idea of what you think it is, that should not stop you from watching a movie, because I regretted that pretty immediately. After even the opening, I was like, wow, this is a really cleanly edited film.
Yes.
Really good acting.
Yes.
Great music. There's some great visual cues that really help sell the theme that they're going for. So there's a lot to like in it. I don't think it's going to be one that I'll watch like every year per se, but I think it's something I would return to at some point or watch with different people who haven't seen it. My gut says like a 2.5, but because I feel like I haven't, and actually 2022 has been a great year for horror. I'm kind of lazy sometimes about getting to these new releases. I think I might give it a 3 just because it was so nice to see a new horror film and enjoy it so much and have a good time, and it really subvert the expectations that I had set for myself. Like not even the movie, just what I set for myself, that it was gonna suck. Again, that's on me. That was my mistake. But for that purpose alone, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 3 just because it was a fun time and a well-made movie.
Awesome.
How about for you?
I am gonna also give it a 3. This one I was almost borderline and kicking it to a 4, but again, that like sort of like choice at the end.
Yeah.
There's a couple moments that like, despite being very unique and original, there were some sort of predictable moments.
For sure.
It's missing some sort of like iconicness to it. It's not a movie that isn't gonna like reshape horror in some way, which is like, it's just a great genre film. And doesn't necessarily escape that box. So I think very well executed movie, and I don't have much bad to say about it, but there's just a lot to dissect and have fun with in this film.
I think you nailed that for me. That was a perfect sentiment of saying it is so well done, but it just doesn't quite rise to the level of something that makes you go, wow, no one's ever done this before. That's wild. Again, some fun ideas. I'll be interested if they end up doing a sequel, what that's going to look like or how that might kind of change this perception. But I mean, I think we're both saying though, overall, I think it's a I say this loosely. It's a fun movie to watch. It's a fun movie to watch in terms of, again, good editing, good writing, great acting, great music. So in that respect, it's a lot of fun. There's some jump scares that, again, I just straight up started laughing after I was having such a good time, like getting the jump scare without it feeling like, when it's overdone, it just feels ridiculous.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like that. I really appreciate that. I do think it's a movie. It's a little bit more subdued in some areas, so I wouldn't say this is like a big group watch, but it's definitely something you could watch with like one or two friends and kind of dissect your feelings about everything like we're about to do.
Yes.
So I think that's kind of my encompassing thoughts, is this is definitely worth a watch. Again, not necessarily one you're going to come back to every year, but definitely worth a watch at least one time. What's your kind of wrap up before we get into all the spoiler stuff?
No, I think you covered it. I do not watch this with a big group. I think there's the nature of the movie, and probably the reason why you were skeptical and so was I, was it looks like it could become hokey very easily.
Yes,
and I think in a big group setting, there's going to be someone that can't take the movie seriously, and it's going to ruin the experience for everybody. And I'm glad that I watched it, on my own, and just got to just savor all the juicy flavors of, the cinematography, the editing, the acting. So this movie crushed it, and there's a lot of inspiration I'm taking out of it. I think it's a great movie to watch.
I love that. That's awesome.
So I think that kind of wraps up our spoiler-free section. Everybody,
that's it. We got too much to get into today.
Hang in there with us. Quick break. We'll be right back with our spoiler-free review and cocktail for you.
Welcome to the podcast Under Your Bed. There'll be drinks, critique, and perhaps a few murders. You're all invited, but once the podcast has begun, there's no way out. The ghosts are waiting, so won't you join me for the podcast Under Your Bed?
I can't do it.
I just look like I had a stroke is kind of what that looks like, but whatever.
For everybody listening on a podcast app, we gave our best smiles. Whoever, if you're watching it, check us out on YouTube, and you can tune in and vote for which one of us had the best scary smile.
Okay, here's my thing. So the marketing campaign, they hired those people to go to a baseball game and do that. And it was so creepy. But I was like, how did they manage that? Because I'm alone and I tried my best and failed epically. And they were in front of all these people and managed to do those creepy smiles. I'm very impressed with those people.
Oh,
kudos to them.
Yeah, props to it. And props to the actors in the movie, because there were some truly great, horrifying smiles that, were very disturbing, that I, obviously, as you see, could not achieve.
Same. But
that's why I'm on this side of the camera.
Right. But what we can all achieve is making the cocktail that we picked today, because it's a very, I love this. It's a super simple cocktail. So this one is called Smile Though Your Heart Is Breaking, and it's by Geeks Who Eat. And they actually did this for the movie Joker, but we were going to do the Smile cocktail and then found this variation, which definitely seems a lot nicer than the original recipe. So thank you, Geeks Who Eat. Again, this is a super yummy one. It is a pretty easy one. Like I said, there's only a couple ingredients. So you've got gin, you've got this Lillet Blanc, which if I butchered that, I'm sorry, I'm new to that drink. Green chartreuse.
Lillet
and if
Blanc.
you are making this, I just want to let you know, if you are making this, apparently I was told when I went to the store, because I had never bought green chartreuse before, there is a international shortage of this. However, there are substitutes out there. This one clearly worked for me, and it's just like a dash of orange bitters. So super simple. You just put them together, stir it, strain it out. And I love a recipe that's that easy.
Yes.
And For the amount of booze, I'm actually really surprised how pleasant it is, because I thought this was going to be a sip and just cringe kind of drink, and it's really nice, actually.
All right. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I screwed up
So
and
good.
cannot partake in this episode.
I think you should explain why, because I think it's just too good.
Well, I too had the problem of finding the green chartreuse, but I found an alternative. But in the meantime, I may have accidentally drank all the gin. And now it is Sunday, and Texas doesn't believe in alcoholics on Sunday, I guess. So
thank you, Michigan, for always letting us buy our booze, except I think at Meijer you can't buy it at an ungodly early hour. Other than that, good to go in Michigan.
So I gotta go with the stock beer I have. So
next time. You got it next time.
But anyways, that'll help me get through this spoiler plot summary.
Yes, it
If
is all you.
Just seen the movie or need a recap, here it is.
There you go.
So, we open with a young girl witnessing the aftermath of her mother's overdose or suicide. We then flash forward and find out this is Rose, our protagonist, who works as a doctor in a psychiatric facility. She interviews a young woman, Laura, who has been experiencing hallucinations after she witnessed the suicide of her professor. Laura states she isn't crazy, something smiling has been following her, and she knows she's going to die. Laura begins screaming about an unseen presence and panicking, eventually falling to the floor and stopping to scream. Smiles and proceeds to slit her throat, ear to ear. The next day, Rose starts seeing and hearing things like patients smiling and telling her she's going to die. Rose's supervisor gives her a paid week off to clear her head. Still, things continue
Wish I could get that.
to decline as Rose experiences auditory and visual hallucinations. Her cat goes missing, and she has nightmares about her mother. Rose gets gaslit by whatever is following her as we eventually find the cat dead inside her nephew's birthday present. Chaos ensues, and Rose sees Laura smiling, a sight which causes her to crash through a glass table. She tries to explain what is happening to her fiancé, Trevor, but unfortunately, this makes her look even more unhinged. Rose goes to speak to the wife of Laura's professor and gets confirmation that he and Laura both witnessed suicide and then started seeing visions of a smiling entity trying to get inside of them. Rose continues to be gaslit, but this time by Trevor, her therapist, and her sister, and brother-in-law, the little fucker, all of whom believe this is all related to genetics or trauma regarding her mother. Joel, Rose's ex and a cop, appears to be the only one who believes her and states there has been a history of 19 suicides, with one exception, a man named Robert. Joel and Rose go to visit said Robert, who is now incarcerated. Robert tells Rose he found a similar chain and realized the only way to break the curse was to pass it on by killing someone and making sure there was a witness, ensuring trauma. Yeah. Rose initially dismisses murder as an option, but continues to be stalked by this entity. It breaks her down enough to consider killing her client, though a hallucination of this scenario snaps her out of it. Rose then elects to isolate herself in her abandoned childhood home, attempting to deprive the entity of its needed witnesses. When we then get the revelation that Rose didn't help her mother as she was overdosing, she confronts this trauma and the entity head on, and she prevails, setting it and the house on fire. Rose heads back to Joel's for a reconciliation, but realizes the prior events were just a hallucination and that she's still, fact, in the family house. And where the entity then climbs inside of her. Joel arrives having tracked her phone and witnesses Rose setting herself on fire while smiling, passing the curse on to Joel.
And potentially a sequel. We don't know.
Dun, dun,
It'll be
dun.
interesting.
Oh, that was as fun as watching the movie.
I think so, actually. I was listening to that, and I mean, I wrote it, so I guess I should. Maybe it's a bit biased,
crushed
but
it.
I was like, "Oh yeah!" I was like, "Yeah, tell me about it the whole time."
Man,
Where do we start with this one? This is a tough one. I don't even know.
It's
do we go
not
to end?
tough.
Do we go beginning? Where do you want to go?
Story, because this has a lot to talk about.
Yes, it does.
And I'm kind of curious, like, your thoughts on, like, originality with the story. There's definitely pieces that are original. There's definitely pieces that feel formulaic. How did it work for you as a unique piece?
So the curse story, we obviously know, is not new, as we referenced right at the beginning. There's about 100 movies you could choose from where some kind of curse is passed on and whatever. However, I think the interesting thing that they did was solidify it with this theme of trauma and inherited trauma and the susceptibility of the victims who already had something like very severe, very traumatic occur in their lives at some point prior to any of this occurring. I think that's a really interesting twist on it. I also think picking somebody who's familiar with mental health was really smart, because I don't think we always see that. And so it's interesting to see a clinician, again, physically like exhibiting the symptoms that her clients have, but being in that spot of where the client is, where nobody believes or really understands what's going on. And we'll have to like deep dive that in a different part, because that's like its own conversation, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
But again, that's just a bit different than I feel like what we usually see. But again, the curse thing is not unique by any means. I just think they were able to solidify it with something that felt a little bit more real and a little bit more heavy. And I really do appreciate that. And I definitely appreciate the fact that it's not this in horror. When we see mental health stuff, I could just lose my mind sometimes, tear out my own hair, like watching, because it's just people drooling on themselves. It's just ridiculous. And this seemed like a legit mental health facility. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. That looks familiar. So it was kind of nice also that it just felt a little bit more grounded than what you might get with a quote unquote curse type movie. I mean, what was just in that aspect, what was your take on the story?
Yeah, I'd say if you were to compare this to another movie, the closest that it comes to is like It Follows. Same sort of story pattern, and it's nice to see it from like an adult's perspective as opposed to like a teenager.
Oh yeah.
So you're right. It's like more grounded in sort of like daily life in a lot of ways. So it was really nice to see like it through like the perspective of an adult that's supposed to like a teenager on summer break or something. It has all this free time. So it did feel like very grounded, and it offered so much like rich like thematic content, like as you're talking about. And then I also really liked the story arc of, this lead character that has this trauma that's kind of haunting her past, in which she must confront in order to therefore confront this external trauma or this external force that's haunting her. And although of course it doesn't like resolve the way she intends. I don't know. I know it's kind of weird to jump to that, but we're right there, so I kind of want to touch on that. So obviously the end, I don't know. I feel really mixed about the ending, because on the one hand, I do appreciate a movie where the protagonist doesn't just get off and everything works out great and they're the ones to beat the curse and blah, 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 blah. However, I don't really know what that says about the theme of, the whole thing is addressing this unresolved trauma to get over things, like to really get over it and live your life again. And she does that, but then it's all like a fake out. So in a way, I find it slightly frustrating that you've got to care. What is the message there, that you can't get over your trauma that you had as a kid? Like, so I do find that aspect a little
a little confusing of I'm not quite sure what then the end all message is, or is she just too damaged of a person that she never could have gotten over it? I don't really know. So I'm curious what you think in terms of the ending.
Yeah, thematically, I see the contradictions you're pointing out.
Yeah.
But if this is a real external, like, spiritual entity thing, whatever, like, then it is just preying on that trauma, and it doesn't matter if she resolves it or not. It got her, right?
Right.
Like a character moment that I thought was interesting was when she goes to the house to isolate. My expectation was that it was to go kill herself, right? That's how you solve this.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't until you mentioned, like, to just deprive it of, like, other people that can witness it, like her murdering someone, that it occurred to me that maybe that's not why she was there. So I was like, just kill yourself already. Like, why haven't you killed yourself? Like, this would all be over and the thing would just be gone from the world. I don't know.
I mean, that is actually ending, but with the ending we had, that is actually true. If you're like, your way would have been actually the way to end.
Well, that was my assumption. The way she was talking, I thought, like, oh, she's like preparing to, she wants to, it is a place of isolation, but also a place where she can confront the past, have resolution, and die in peace. But then she doesn't do it. What did you think about?
No, because she tries to face it.
Yeah, like she's gonna be able to like murder this thing that's like in her head.
Well, I think it's more just the fact that she even goes to this house, which clearly there's a point of contention with her and the sister about having kept the house that's mentioned very early in the movie. And it actually took me like I felt so dumb. It took me like way too into the end of the first one to figure out this was the same house that her mom died in. And I was like, oh, I see. Okay, so she really has physically held on to that trauma that she had as a kid. And man, if you could take a drink for every time we say the word trauma through this, it'd be wasted already. But that physical manifestation of it and holding on to that and then going there to, again, head on confront the thing. And so again, that's where, like, in a way I find it like a little defeatist in the sense that she goes and she does it, it's all a lie. So it's a little, again, it's a hard toss up for me because I like the kind of creature winning in the end. I like that it opens it up for a sequel, things like that, which obviously don't happen if it's all neat and tidy with a bow. And I appreciate that it's not neat and tidy. But again, I just don't really know what we're saying then if that's the outcome of confronting your trauma and letting go of this thing that's held you down for so long. And then it's like, just kidding, you didn't do any of that.
Yeah. Personally, I like the way it ended.
Fair.
I like that it still got the best of her. What I'm still on the fence with is the whole like fake out clean resolution ending where she, leaves the house. It appears that it's been burnt down, but then snap back to reality. She's still inside the house. That was one of the moments in the movie that I was like, this is obviously not really happening. It's in her head. She's still in the house. Like, I don't know. I saw it coming a mile away. I don't think it was that particularly insightful on my behalf. I'm curious your thoughts.
No, I think like it's a pretty obvious. It just seemed too tidy to everything was like everything was perfect. She went to the ex's house and relayed this beautiful speech of this insight she's gathered about everything that's held her back in life from this, again, stemming from her childhood. And it was just a bit too tidy to be believable as the actual ending. But I also, again, just thematically, I don't know if everything like totally tied up for me.
It did give us two really great moments though. One being the idea of like how truly trapped you can feel with mental illness, where you think you've escaped it maybe it's been a while since you've had an episode, or you're just feeling better, and then all of a sudden it smacks you in the face again. I liked that. And then also it gave us that great performance from Joel, played by Kyle Gallner, just where we got to see him inhabit the character, the spiritual entity, whatever. Does it have a name? We should name it. I feel like Mr. Smile.
I don't know, because it was confusing too, because obviously it kind of took on the somewhat physical attributes of the mom, but then it was like grotesquely large and elongated arms and limbs, and and then I did love the skin peeling. I'm not gonna lie, that I totally dug that. That was,
all right.
I was kind of into that. Like, I was like, I kind of like that.
We're there. Let's talk about it. Yes, love the first time the face came off.
It looked really good.
This is where I started getting the vibes of It, right? Where it was like where it has a lot of like showing the monsters and like it, you know. It's like physically in front of you, tormenting you. And I thought, I was upset that they gave us a monster reveal, but I thought the monster was really unique looking.
Yes.
It was frightening. And they also use it very, very sparingly. You don't see the monster much, so I felt
not
like
a ton of lighting either. They
really, I think, kind of got away with it as much as you can, making that decision.
Yeah, it gives me more, for me, it gives me more the It Follows vibes, but I guess here's where I think It Follows was a little bit more successful, in my opinion, with it. What I liked about It Follows, and sorry, not huge spoilers, but I guess spoilers if you haven't seen It Follows yet, but I like that the entity takes on a look, like it's all these different looks. Sometimes it's someone you know, sometimes it's someone you don't know. I felt like that was a little bit more strategic versus this particular monster, which just tended to inhabit, like, I guess, people that she knew, typically speaking. I thought there was something a little bit more scary about this idea that this thing could be following you and you would or wouldn't know who it is. I think that was, again, just a little bit, for me personally, just executed a little bit better. I do agree, though, the actual monster itself, even though in a way it kind of looks stupidly goofy, I kind of dug it, which is a weird thing to say, but it, again, those giant long arms and long limbs are very, very creepy. It's this very overpowering kind of looking thing. And then the very elongated face, it's all very, very creepy. Even though, again, it's kind of dumb in a way. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with the actual monster itself. I wasn't a big fan of Giant Mom walking through the hallway.
Yeah. It's a little weird.
That was the part where I was like, dang, this is like probably crossing the line into hokey.
A bit.
But I did feel like it redeemed itself with intensity and also the effect of crawling into her mouth.
I loved that part. I actually dug that part.
Was
big
great.
time.
And again, we didn't see the whole thing. That it could have gotten hokey real fast.
It would have been so dumb.
Yeah, it would have been terrible. But all you see is like the mouth opening up and like about to stick its head in, and that was awesome. Great. We saw
and
it
while
just
it was
enough.
Skinless at that point, so then it's like taking on the face and the persona of that person, at least for a very hot minute, it seems like, because it seems like the entity's in there for like a second, does the deed, and then moves on to torturing somebody else.
Yes, and then truly loved the suspense. I mean, I thought it was pretty suspenseful. When Joel walks into the house, you find...
You're like, you dumb bitch. Like, you shouldn't be there. If you hadn't gone there, it would have been fine, but no.
Yeah. And so, of course, you find our main character doused in kerosene, giving us the smile.
Yeah, which actually, I mean, this will be interesting if they do opt to go a sequel road. I actually think they set themselves up in a very interesting place where Joel is obviously about 15 steps ahead of anybody else who dealt with this entity. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting if they go that route. If they do, nothing's been officially set. But I imagine due to the success of this, I can't see why they wouldn't go ahead with something, but who knows? But it'll be interesting to see where they go with that with somebody who already has the insight and wherewithal about like what's going on, if that's going to change the dynamic or not.
Give me a prediction. If they have a sequel, does he live? Does he die? If he lives, how does he live? If he dies, how does he die? What I mean by how does he die is, does the monster get him or does he like take his own life?
I would imagine that either he survives or he takes his own life to stop it in some capacity, because I can't see them rehashing the same concept a second time the exact same way. What'll be interesting too is we explicitly hear why each other victim that we're familiar with has had some kind of trauma exist prior to. We don't actually know with him any of that too. So I imagine there'll be some kind of backstory to explore why he's also susceptible to this thing. So I probably just motivated him to become a cop. Probably, like she got motivated to be a mental health clinician again. That was actually a confusing part for me. we'll get into that in a bit. But I imagine if there's a sequel, there's gonna be a backstory involved. He'll be a few steps ahead, so I imagine he's got to have some connection to somebody somewhere. I don't know. Maybe we'll go back to the guy in the prison. I don't know if any of that will come back up, but you can't just have him on this like solo quest. There has to be like somebody else involved, obviously. So I don't know. Those are just just quickly theorizing without any thought. How about you? What would you think would happen in a sequel?
I love it. I'm going to go a little dark. I think he's going to survive. Oh! He's going to survive, but he's going to have to do it by killing someone
I dig it.
He doesn't want to kill. Like, he gets the best of him, and he murders someone close to him.
Oh. Oof. I could see it, though. If they want to keep it going, I could see it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't know.
Yeah,
just
and that's actually... That entity is that's an interesting concept. That you could pass it off by inflicting trauma upon someone else is a really interesting idea.
Hurt people.
I wonder moving forward how they do it. But I think that the part that interests me the most is that like you couldn't then get away with your crime. Like you have to have someone else see the thing happen. So how would you know what I mean? So I like that it's like, okay, point. Well, you're not going to die, but now you're incarcerated forever. So like, it's really weird,
Yeah. That's what the Robert character did, right? He was like, hey, I'd rather be alive incarcerated than dead.
Well, I think you're pushed so hard that you break the limitations of who you think you are as a person.
Oh, absolutely. I have not been tormented in that way. So,
but just that she even was considering doing it, which actually this is an interesting conversation too. I think it's really interesting that her choice of victim is her own client and that her own friend in the field is the person that she would then like inflict this upon, whether she knew he was going to be the one to walk in or whatever. But I think it's really interesting that she has an understanding clinically like what this guy's going through, but then she actually has this lived experience where she's experiencing what this person with a mental health issue is dealing with like on a daily basis, feeling stalked, feeling scared, feeling like people are going to die all the time, and that feeling very reality based, but that is who she chooses as a victim is a very interesting idea. Like she still can't bring herself to be like, I'm in the same place as this client, even though she is,
sure,
in a way.
And so why do you think she chooses him? Is it perhaps because she thinks she's freeing him in some way from his like mental prison?
I think she would justify it as that, but I
Yeah.
think the reality of the answer is that she views him as less of a person than
Expendable.
others, which is the thing that happens with a lot of people who have mental illness. So I think despite the fact that she's worked her whole life, she still sees him as somebody who's expendable in the long run. I mean, that's just my personal take, but what did you kind of think of that choice?
I don't have a strong opinion. I do not know, but I'm curious. Like I want to hear, as someone that's worked in these environments, and her character as a clinician. How did you think it all played out? What did they get right? What was a little maybe not right? And what was your take?
Oh, that's tough. As a clinician, especially when she was interviewing that Laura character, I was like, oh, okay, this looks like an assessment I would do. This feels like pretty on par with like the reality of things. And I really like that when that Carl comes in, the client that they've dealt with multiple times, like as that happens a lot, I really like how they have such a, like, I think to an outsider perspective, somebody being like, he's going to die, you're going to die, we're all going to die, blah, 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 would sound very scary. But the fact that they're like, he's harmless, like, don't worry about it. Like, he's just having, he's having an episode. He just needs to chill, get on his meds. He's going to be fine. I really liked that because, again, it was that kind of taking that stigma away. Like, this person is not violent. And actually, the person to be scared of was her, not him. So I think that was an interesting twist. The therapist was actually the one who I was like, you've crossed a boundary I wouldn't cross, but I think that was the fake out. No, she does go with the boyfriend. That's where I was like, that's really weird.
Yeah, the first time. Yeah.
Yeah, I would never show up to like a client's home unexpected. And tell them that they need to engage in therapy or they need to do this or that. Like, that would just never be the appropriate approach to things,
so question though,
think.
even if there was like an imminent threat of suicide or murder.
Right.
That's
totally different. And honestly, at that point, you're going to go through a court system and it's going to be a whole to-do, which I understand for a horror movie.
Yeah.
That's not gonna be where you go. That's too much time to spend. Like, and then I filled out a petition and got the boyfriend to sign up. Like, no, that's not gonna be in a horror movie.
Now, could you excuse it from the perspective that she is also a clinician, a professional, and they have more of like a friendship / professional relationship that sort of transcends what is just a therapist and client relationship. Does that give her any permission there, or that's just way too fuzzy?
Yeah, there's no way. I mean, like, look, if somebody's an intimate threat, that's when HIPAA gets violated. That's the only time you're allowed to do that. That's the only time you're allowed to do that.
Pretty damn explicit.
And to be fair, that I would be very concerned, but at that point, again, we can cut this because this is just clinical stuff. But I would absolutely at that point have the boyfriend put a petition. She would go inpatient. That's would be my clinical recommendation. I would never accost someone at their home that might actually stress them out even more if I was really concerned about them. But yeah, hospitalization would be I wouldn't be I'm just going to show up at your house and tell you should get involved in therapy again, which is just stupid.
I was going to throw it out there that, Rose had a really great boss. Take some time off. I'm a little worried you're working too much. And I was like, I just can't believe that because hospitals are so underfunded and overworked. And, it's there's no way anybody's... But they also are very health conscious, mental... So,
That's it. Yeah. That's it. That actually is very believable to me where I was I don't think... Because... no mental health person wants an unhealthy person working with clients. That is a no. That's a no.
Recipe for disaster.
That is actually a part that might seem a bit far-fetched, but in reality has been my experience where I've been lucky, I guess, in that every supervisor I've had is very we're social workers.
That's what they believe in, and they know the grind.
You gotta take care of yourself. You gotta take care of yourself. But I do think that. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say I do like that. They kind of played into those themes of the American like health institution. Hey, you can't do this because we gotta get it approved by the board, and like you're causing me kinds of problems. Like they're uninsured, we can't treat them. Talking about
Which
stuff
also
like that.
I was trying to figure out. I was like, what kind of hospital do you guys work at? I'm really confused. I kind of wish they had explicitly said it. Like again, that's just like a nitpicking like thing where I'm like, do you take Medicaid? Do you take like what's going on? What is the capacity of what you're doing? But I do think again, I just think it's an interesting choice to have a clinician experiencing the things that a client actually experiences, but it's quote unquote real, though it's real to them, and that she still can't quite identify in the same way. She still holds herself to a different level and doesn't understand why people don't believe her. It's just a really interesting flip to me.
Right. So I feel like this conversation sort of is a good segue to some of the character relationships.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
So are there any relationships that felt forced or characters that didn't totally add up? I have like a couple thoughts, but they're pretty limited. So
yeah, the one for me that I was really confused and didn't really understand what we were trying to get out of that dynamic was, and I'm going to call him A-Train. I'm sorry. His name is Trevor in the movie, but I'm going to absolutely call him A-Train. But I didn't really get what they were trying to do there other than, again, add to this kind of gaslighting thing. I couldn't really understand because at the beginning, he's very supportive of what's going on. She says, my client killed themselves and it was a hard day. And he's like, well, we don't have to go do this family dinner. We can just chill. Like he's very supportive, whatever. But he seems to turn very quickly into being completely unsupportive. And in a way, I understand as an outside person where you would be like, I think my significant other is having like a serious mental health crisis and I don't think they're taking care of themselves and I don't really know what to do. So I guess on one hand, I get it. But on the other, I just feel like they pivot him to this very uncaring, unsupportive person. And I just don't really get that. What did you think of that dynamic? And did you get the same kind of vibe as I did? Or do you have a different feeling?
That was definitely where I was going to go. Was the relationship that was like the sketchiest on camera.
It was the sketchiest, yeah.
And I think he definitely represents sort of like the societal like outsider view, like the mainstream person that doesn't have experience with or doesn't work within mental health issues, will have carry some stigma, and definitely like not have a lot of sympathy. And so that plays out. But I agree, like for someone that really showed themselves to be like so supportive, he very quickly goes like 180. I think especially when you're like making a decision like marriage, like that is a big decision. And, he's got the cold feet and then all of a sudden this like huge issue pops up and he's like, what am I getting myself into? He panics. I think that's a human response. So although might not, agree with his choices or how he went about it, kind of going behind her back, talking to the therapist, for example, that's a huge no-no. Like I don't, and again, this is probably one of those situations where what therapist would reveal and discuss those private matters with your significant
consent to
other?
share. It just depends. Do you have a consent to share form? Because if you do, we're talking. If you don't, we're not talking.
Yeah.
So,
But from the sound of it, that, that probably wouldn't have been in place because she didn't really even know about her mother's history, right? Until he appeared.
I think he said he looked it up.
He kind of did some sort of like research recently, right?
Yeah.
So it sounded like new news to him. So I think there were a lot of like relatable aspects to it. But it just happened so quickly and was so extreme of a shift that it was just a little bumpy of a character arc.
Oh, I agree. I think they try to set it up, but it's too superficial for me personally. But I feel like they try to set it up in this way that she is very, with him, it's a very much like superficial appearance of, oh, everything's fine, it's great, don't worry about it. And she's not actually telling him anything that's wrong with her and the things that are going on. So maybe that is kind of set up, but I feel like it's just not executed enough or with enough layering for me to really buy into it, where you said it just feels very like abrupt. I will say, however, because he is really funny. He just is really funny in many of his acting roles.
Yeah.
Like, I can't remember where's the glass breaks to say. He's like, "Did you break another glass?" And I laughed a lot. Like I was like, he's got good comedic timing, and so I feel bad. I feel like he was kind of underutilized in my opinion in this movie and very superficial, which is too bad because I think he has a lot more to offer as an actor.
Yeah, fair. The glass breaking scene, I thought there was some great stuff happening in the home. I think as a setting, that large empty house, woman alone, was a great place for this mental health crisis to play out. Where, is she experiencing, I forget the words she used, this like, it's kind of like a shared trauma where she felt like she was experiencing some of the same things where in fact it's like this, supernatural thing. I mean, the first time she sees the smile outside of the girl killing herself in the first scene,
yeah,
in that like dark corner of her house was great. It wasn't over exaggerated. The smile was just standing there in the shadow looking at her, and she has that moment like, am I losing my mind? Is this real? Is this not real? And we're right there with her. Is she actually seeing that? Is she not there? And then the glass shatters and it's gone, and you're left wondering. I thought it was a fantastic moment, and I just loved the slow pan. And what was brilliant about it is they used the exact same location and camera movement when the therapist comes to the door, preceding the scene that reveals that she is, in fact, the smile.
The entity and not a real person, yeah.
And only something I caught second time, but it was, again, that slow pan over, and you're like, holy fuck,
God, you're so right.
So, that was just one of those, like, just fine notes, like smelling a fine wine. Like, I was like, holy shit, they had a plan with camera, and they executed camera, and it was throughout.
Oh, absolutely. We're on that, so let's get into it, and you're going to have like so much better input than I will for this, but the things that I picked up on in particular as like I appreciate cinematography, but I would say I'm a novice in terms of my knowledge base, but the things that I picked up on that I thought were really interesting were the pan out from the mother overdosing at the beginning to the pan in, which is, again, fits very well with that theme of like addressing the trauma versus regressing and not dealing with it. So I thought that was a really cool choice. I also like the flip they do like maybe one or two times. I know they did it for sure one time. It gave me very much Midsommar vibes with that camera, but it was so cleanly done. It just looked really nice. And again, I think you're going to be the one to talk to about this, but I feel like the camera work was very on theme with what they wanted to do. It looked very clean throughout. There wasn't a single time where I thought, oh, that was a really sloppy shot. Like, it felt very calculated. I guess having the more actual lens of it, what did you think about the cinematography?
Well executed throughout. It had some very like modern style. I see this kind of play a lot in like Black Mirror type of movies. But I think even like more heightened and more like even better executed. Their use of the rotating camera was great. I loved like the rotating camera coming out of mom dead on bed, and then like you said, kind of panning over the nightstand and stuff, pushing into the young girl standing in the doorway was jarring and insightful, and accompanied with the soundtrack just crushed that moment.
Soundtrack's so good.
And it lended itself to like the suspense and the like just jarringness of like the distortion of reality, the trauma. That's really what it was. It's just like just hit the trauma, it pushed it right in your face. And then and
that backing away from it, not wanting to address it, so the camera's moving out, and then when she's actually ready, pushing back in on that moment and solidifying that shot.
You got
you're
it,
getting
Taylor.
the backstory. You're getting the backstory, and I really dug that.
I thought the drone work was great. My favorite
God, I didn't
shot,
even. Yeah, right. It was a drone. I didn't think about some of those shots where drones. 100%. Totally makes sense.
The best drone shot, in my opinion, was the one where the ambulance is arriving at the hospital, which you assume is her first client that kills herself in the beginning, right? So it's looking straight down, panning along the building. The ambulance comes in and it tilts up and goes through her office window. I thought it was a beautifully executed shot. Now, I'm a little over the use of upside down drone shots.
I was just going to ask you.
It's happening so much. It's all over the place. But I
liked it in Midsommar the best, if I'm being honest. I thought that was a cleaner version of that, but that's just me.
That was like they're entering into this like new world, right? So in
it fits the
Midsommar,
narrative really well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And here it felt like they're just sort of like, it's fun. It's distorting.
Yes, thank you. Yes,
they did it because it's a horror film and they can get away with it. So while I'm going to excuse it, I think it was they had some great shots still, but it didn't like totally feel necessary, and therefore was extraneous and shouldn't have been in there, in my opinion. There are also a couple like fun transition moments, like pushing through a circular window and then you're into a different like location and scene, right?
Oh yeah.
Which again, I think is just kind of there for fun and not necessary, but
telling you something
everything was so well executed. I liked they only had a few extreme close-ups, and it was when she's sitting in the car like gnawing on her finger, and you get the like eyeball, you get the thumb like biting her nails. And I thought that was a great use of just like jarring the audience, putting her in that high stress situation. It was very uncomfortable, and
very uncomfortable,
and then followed by that great bending neck sequence.
Oh my God, just a hot minute on that because this is so funny. So I had seen the trailer months ago, and we had talked about covering this movie, and so obviously I didn't go back and rewatch that. So actually, aside from the neck slitting, which is obviously very prominent in the trailer, I had forgotten most of the trailer stuff. So when that moment happened, I was completely caught off guard because you expect a jump scare, like someone's gonna hit the window or someone's gonna do whatever. Did I expect a neck to go all the way over and flop down? No, I did not. So I jumped so hard and then could not stop laughing for like 3 minutes after at the sheer joy of being so surprised. However, CJ, I think your experience is probably what more people would have happened. So why don't you go with that?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. If I hadn't like watched the trailer like 5 times before watching the movie, it would have hit so much better. But it was just overused in the movie.
So disappointing.
The jump scare that got me that I thought was great was the the like scream in the ear when she's on the computer listening to the audio recording. I thought it was a
that's a
great
good
jump
one.
scare. You know,
That's a
she's
good
alone
one.
in the house. The sound design just drops to nothing. It gets real quiet. She's leaning in, trying to listen to the like little sound. And I was like, oh God, are we gonna go cheesy and like hear some stupid like voice? And no,
Disembodied voice of some kind.
They didn't go cheesy with that. They pulled you out with this like freaky looking, scary, I don't know, like Ring looking girl, like right here, and that got me pretty good. That was the jump scare that got me.
I always appreciate, like, look, with a horror movie, I think you expect a certain level of jump scares or a certain number at least, and that's fine. I just think when we have a problem is when they're used every 5 minutes because you don't have any suspense built. Whereas I think with this movie, it had a good footing. So when it was used, it just felt like fun and a little extra in a good way. And in terms of like, it didn't feel distracting, which I definitely appreciate because I think jump scares can be very fucking distracting.
Yes, and then force suspense through like the classic like closing a door. Is there something behind you? You know, like you saw it in Scream, right? Where it's like
oh, it was everywhere.
It's behind the door.
Honestly,
It's behind the door. It's behind the door.
That did it so many times that I thought it was really funny by the time it actually happened.
That's a satirical
I agree.
choice. But they did not do that. I think there was like one like fridge door closing moment at the beginning, and then they stopped, and that was a very great choice. I thought the suspense was built through two key things. One was the music, and then two, the sound design in general. And then two, the fact that you can just put somebody in the room with her or a person anywhere and you are on your toes because you do not know if that is who they are or not.
100, totally agree.
It's so fun. It's just like being able to play with that, like crowds of people or no people, and then you throw jump scares in there where they come out of nowhere, and you are vulnerable the entire movie.
Let's get into that cat scene then, because I think that's actually one of the more, I think for many reasons, that's like one of the most uncomfortable and one of the most like traumatic kind of things to watch happen, because I think at that point, she's still trying to keep it together in a sense. And I mean, she literally puts on that fake smile, which obviously is like fits quite into that theme of, you know, putting on a facade when something really dark is going on inside of you or you haven't dealt with or whatever. But I think that entire scene is like kind of heartbreaking to watch in a way, because this very public display of looking like very mentally unwell, and then you peer, and it's really further complicated by that dynamic with the sister, which then we get the backstory that the sister had left the house prior and left her younger sister behind to deal with this really unfit, unwell mother. And that there's this element of self-preservation that is absolutely necessary and should never be frowned upon. And then this other element of like her kind of neglecting her sister in a way, and then seeing the same kind of scenario play out a second time in their lives. And in a way, it's like a really deeply heartbreaking situation that she can't get her sister to understand or to like kind of reckon with what happened to her.
Truly like appreciate the situation.
For sure, but she also left this situation, so you're like, you get where she's going to do it again and again. But again, it shouldn't be judged because it is a self-preservation thing of not getting bogged down by somebody who's really mentally unwell. But then the victim in that is obviously our protagonist. But it's just a really interesting scene. I mean, what did you think of that whole thing playing out?
That was probably the most poignant scene to like discuss the theme or like themes of mental health and mental illness. Because here's someone that's like experiencing trauma and there's no other way to take it than, holy shit, my sister just stuck a cat in my son's spot.
Oh,
right?
she's insane. Yeah, she that's what the sister, my sister's insane is what you'd be thinking. Yeah.
And then she just crashes through the table.
Oh, that was so
and comes
harsh.
up just bloodied and glass in her arms. It just felt so raw and visceral, and you were just shoved into her reality of imprisonment, mental imprisonment. I mean, I think the movie did a great job of putting you in the seat of someone experiencing mental illness, you know?
Yeah, and feeling like no one's believing what's happening to you, but it's so very real to you. And again, obviously, we actually have this manifestation in the movie, but that it's so much more indicative of the larger issue of like, that is what somebody's experiencing on a daily basis, and it's really scary for them, and that nobody else is believing or understanding them or getting what's happening with them. The hearing things, the seeing things, and it's super interesting. And then to just see how no one comes to her aid, though it's, again, slightly understandable. It's not like I'm chastising anyone in the room, because if you were watching it go down, you'd be really scared, and you'd be like, this person is really unwell and I don't know what to do, and I'm freaked out, and my kid just saw this and this is horrifying and whatever. But then you're in her seat and her cat is dead and she's crying and it's just horrible, and then she falls through the glass, and very guttural type noises coming from her as well that just feel very real and very scary.
Great.
Really good.
It also did a great job of showing like the secondhand trauma that's experienced by family. And
good point.
One of the best moments was the kid watching through the window when
the nephew.
The nephew, when she's having after the neck bending moment at the car, she starts screaming just like out of sheer horror and frustration,
and sadness, all of it.
And the nephew sees that, and it's just like, holy shit, what's happening to her? Like, that's terrifying to watch from an outside perspective of someone that has no idea what's happening to that person,
So is he then? This is actually a question. Is he then susceptible to this thing? Because is this his aunt who prior to all this has been, I assume, like, she seems like they regularly meet with the sister and the brother-in-law. So there has to be a relationship there, and she has to have some relationship with her nephew. So then this nephew has his aunt who's been stable, and all of a sudden is completely unstable, traumatizes him by presenting him a dead fucking cat, which is horrifying. And then he's watching her have what looks like a perceived breakdown in her car. So now, is he traumatized? Does he have something? Could he be a part of the sequel? I don't know.
I like it. Joel murders his mom, her sister, Rose's sister, to save himself.
Okay.
And nephew comes crawling out from the cupboard after witnessing this, and Joel's like, holy shit, what have I done? That sounds fun.
God.
That should be the sequel. We've written it for you. You're welcome.
Let's send it in. We're good to go. Yeah, so I think that's a cool dynamic. I think they... Yeah, like you said, I think they've shown that these events are going to have ramifications, whether he gets this entity is in his life or not. Like this is going to have a ramification on his mental well-being, as it should. It's pretty upsetting. And then your aunt commits suicide via, what do you call that? You set yourself on fire. There's a specific word, immolation. Is that right?
Oh, that sounds like it could be right, but
am I making that
I'm
up?
not positive. I don't have that word in my
vocabulary.
vocabulary.
Look, guys, this drink is strong. I'm doing my best here, okay?
You're right. What's the Pink Floyd cover album, or the cover of the album? The monk setting himself on fire. That's what it's called. Emulation.
Self-immolation.
Yeah, something like that. That sounds about right. Y'all write in and help us.
Yeah. Help us sort that one out. But that's not gonna be good for your childhood. I imagine that's gonna be a rough thing to get over. So I think that's interesting, because he's kind of like a secondary character, but actually you're like, oh, there's a lot to unpack with that situation.
For sure.
Yeah, it's just wild.
You know, we started at the end of the movie. I guess it's appropriate
we did.
to end with the beginning of the movie. I thought there was so much good stuff that drew you right into this world. You know, with the opening sequence of Rose trying to treat this new patient and then the suicide. Your thoughts?
Oh, that the actress who plays Laura, I think, is really excellent. Really excellent in this beginning.
Know other movies she's in because I completely agree. I want to follow her. I want to see what else she's in.
Okay, so I would recommend. Again, this movie is kind of hokey. It doesn't totally work, but it's kind of fun in a way that's like it is kind of bad but kind of good, so you like it. It's called All Cheerleaders Die, and she has a lead role in that. And obviously, like the title indicates, it's about a group of cheerleaders who die and are resurrected.
Nice.
So, and then zombie shenanigans ensue. There's some witchy shit. Again, I don't think the tone is totally there, but however, she's a lead in that. So if you're interested in seeing her in another horror, I would still say it's a fun movie. I just wouldn't take it as seriously as her deep diving into Smile. However, that said, she really sold everything, and the fact that I like that we start the movie with not seeing what this person is seeing. So again, we get this very like, I'm the clinician, you're the crazy person, quote unquote, and like just because again,
dragged in.
Yeah, and then we're getting to then see like what was going on for this person, but we're not witnessing any of that at the beginning. So I feel like it's really effective at the beginning and then getting that shift in perspective and getting to see what happens. But oh man, it's just like she just sells it as somebody who is just having this horrifying thing happen and being like, no one is believing me and all this crazy shit is going on and I don't know how to deal with this. And when she starts freaking out too, it just felt, you're just there. I mean, how did you feel about the opening?
I thought it was brilliant. You stick two actors in a largely empty room with two chairs and are able to create an extremely suspenseful and extremely traumatizing on-screen moment. That is when I was immediately bought into the movie. I was like, okay, this movie is not what I feared it could be. It's
not hokey, not schlocky. Yeah.
I was just like, yes. Another note that came out in this, in terms of cinematography, is, and this is very like modern style you see a lot now, is like actors looking into the edge of the frame, sort of that there's a very limited look space, and you're getting that sort of like very claustrophobic and unbalanced feel, which I thought they used very effectively in this this scene in particular, and then throughout the movie at times. So it just immediately there were like little things happening where I was like, this is all working. This is going to be a good movie.
Totally sold by the acting, I think. Completely sold.
And I think we got, in my opinion, what I thought was the second best smile of the whole movie. Of course,
who do you think did better? Because I think she was my favorite, actually.
Ooh, yeah, I was on the fence, but the therapist. I think the therapist was scarier. At first,
okay. Do you feel like
it's
because there was more momentum to that? With the therapist?
Man, I don't think so. It looked like a little hokey at first, but then it just kept growing.
I thought so.
And the way she was able to distort her face, like to have this like huge smile, and then the moving forward, just like relentless move forward. Maybe the suspense and the height of that moment was just so intense that maybe that helps sell the smile, I guess, and like the drooling, but
the walking over that couch in a way that is almost kind of unhuman and unrelenting. It was like a Terminator type movement was so impressive to me. I was like, if I did that, I would have fallen. That couch would have fallen. It would have been bad news for everyone. Like, it wouldn't have worked out.
Yeah.
So impressed by that. But
to me, those were the two best.
Oh, yeah. So I'm realizing, I can't believe we even didn't get on this, but we got two little kitty corner things, I think, to wrap up on. But deaths. Oh my God, how did we not get into the death situation? That is wild that we didn't get there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess my question is favorite death, and I know much of it was off screen, which is my secondary question of what did you think of not necessarily explicitly seeing it, but also you get some of those explicit shots. So favorite one, and how you thought that was presented, and did you like it, did you not like it?
The best death, perhaps, because it is iconic, is slitting the throat in that scene we're just talking about. The final death, Rose setting herself on fire, is great as well. And there's some awesome ones like the clippers to the throat, like and then the off screen, like the photos of all the other suicides. But that smile,
the autopsy table one too, is I thought pretty intense, where his face is like fucked.
Yeah,
like you were like, ugh.
Right, that one. I was like, thanks for the nightmares.
Because he beat himself with a hammer. Yeah, thanks for that.
But I think it is just iconic. You like drawing a smile with glass on your face is a great idea. And the effects were just nailed, and it was unhinged.
Oh, they looked really good. Yeah, they looked super good. I also like the presentation of not having it all like the first one. Like Laura's is very explicit. You're right in it. You're watching it happen. And I think you would lose some of the effectiveness if that were to occur every time. So I like that we get like an autopsy shot. I like that we get like footage from the gas station. It presents itself in these it's still very creepy, but it feels different every time. So you're never getting repetitive, which I definitely appreciate. And the ingenuity of coming up with different deaths too is something that I always give credit to. It's like the only good part of that terrible, what is that movie called? It's where the plants are killing people, and it's so dumb, but everyone's like killing themselves in unique ways, and that was like the only thing I liked about the movie.
It's not one of
but
the
this is
phobia,
able.
like I'm trying to say arachnophobia, but was it something phobia?
Was that M. Night Shyamalan film? What was it? It happens. The happening.
The happening.
Is that it? I think that was it. But that was like the only thing they did well, where I like that this movie was still able to do that, but actually give you like a fully fleshed out scenario to go with it. So you're like, that's how you effectively make that happen.
No, I agree. They were all super fun, but it's Rose's story. We're seeing it from her perspective. So it makes sense that the only on-screen deaths we get are, the one that she witnesses
the one she
and then
sees.
the one that she commits herself. So, yeah.
My
great.
last question before this is my last kitty corner thing was, what do you think of the concept of subverting this thing by traumatizing some unsuspecting person? Like, I kind of dug it. I thought it was, because you gotta, with all these cursed movies, you gotta have a loophole of some kind. But this is like the most grim outcome I could think of. What did you think of that tactic, I guess? It's
the great moral dilemma to put a character in to really test, your character. And she found a good solution, right? Other than Robert, who decided, fuck it, let's murder someone. Like, she was like, hey, I'm gonna isolate, and then I solve the problem.
It was a great plan, wasn't it? Actually, it really was.
Great plan. It just
fucking Joel. Joel.
Just leave her alone. Let her find her own.
Turn your tracker off, though.
Maybe that's the moral of the story they're trying to say. You know what? She's lost. Just let them figure it out on their own.
No, but he even knows how this curse passes, and he still shows up. So to some extent, you're like, Kyle Gallner, you're an idiot. Like, why did you show up? But also, like, what would you do?
Heart.
Just leave that person in peril? Like, of course not.
Yeah.
But
so it's super fun.
I just thought that was cool.
What would you do? Murder? Kill yourself? Too dark to
Probably none,
share.
honestly. No, probably none. I would probably end up exactly
Just
where everyone else did, being like, I can make it
wallowing
work,
in
and then
despair.
yes, 100%. I know myself well enough to be like, I take bugs outside. There's no way like that I would be able to murder somebody. And I also just could not do anything else. So I'd be like, I'm going to beat this thing. I'm going to face my trauma head on and then get totally boned is what I think would happen. Well, what's your final girl scenario? How would that work out for you?
Completely agree. It's not going to end well. I'll wimp out and it's just I'm gonna do her thing. If I got smart enough to get out to the middle of the woods, I'd still find a way to fuck it up.
Just hope no one follows you and fucks up your entire plan.
Yeah. Well,
Joe Wall.
Yeah, that motherfucker. It was an awesome movie. Please go watch it if you did not. We hope you loved it as much as we did. I personally love this style of horror film, and want more of them.
Yeah, I always appreciate when somebody takes a concept that has been done and then finds a way to do something innovative. And that's, I want to make it very clear, I do love the Ring remake, and I really do. I fucking love it, folks. So I don't think they're in the hammy section of that by any means, but certainly the idea has been done and done. So it's nice to, anytime you can make that resonate in a way that feels like grounded and real, I think that's a very cool thing to do. Again, I really appreciate the not stigmatizing of mentally ill people, which we see unfortunately happen a lot in movies, especially in horror movies. So it's really nice to see a better, cleaner look at that as well, which I think honestly movies are just getting smarter, and they're keeping up with what this audience is a good audience. Horror movie people in 2022 especially, we got some good stuff, so we're hoping 2023 is just as kind. Fingers crossed. I feel like there's some good stuff on the market. Our next one will be very near Christmas. And if you've not seen this for some ungodly reason, I will go ahead and let you know we're covering next week. Next week, it'll be 2 weeks from now. We are doing the OG, technically the first slasher, which is Black Christmas, the original. Do not, I beg of you, make the mistake of watching the 2000s remake or the one that just happened like a year or two ago. There's no comparison. This movie is kick-ass. It's so good. I'm really stoked to hear CJ's thoughts on this one. And so you guys definitely, if you have an opportunity, check it out. It is the perfect thing for your spooky season Christmas.
We love y'all for tuning in. Keep coming back. You can find us on socials. You can find all of our drinks on social too. Check out Facebook, Twitter, I don't know, Instagram,
yeah, we don't know about
Pinterest.
Pod Under Your Bed is the handle for all of those, including our Gmail, which is where you guys can send requests for any movies you want us to cover.
Ooh, until next time, we'll see you during Christmas for Black Christmas. Be good, y'all.
Merry Creepmas, everybody. Getting ready for that.